Hi there, it's Miley with Mustard Seed Social Live. Today I wanted to talk about 3 lessons for small businesses from Nike's $25 billion loss. I wonder if by now everybody has seen the news articles on Nike's ending of quarter 2 and the huge loss, which was basically Wall Street saying we don't really appreciate how Nike's stock has eroded and the brand value has eroded. But it's definitely gone viral and there's been a lot of conversation around it. And I sort of wanted to touch on it and talk about it a little bit. And it's because what I found as someone who talks to about corporate projects all the way down to micro businesses, that a lot of these business concepts apply right down to the small businesses and the micro businesses. So if we haven't met yet, my name again is Miley, like Smiley Miley. I'm the owner and main media buyer for Mustard Seed Social, and I help woman-owned product businesses grow their online shops using Meta and Google Ads. I especially like helping moms. So the first thing, what I want to go over first is just like what happened here, right? And I will link to the story. There's a nice overview on LinkedIn. I'll try to tell the high level story. I just don't want to take too much time on it. But so basically, I think we all know Nike as a huge brand name. It's very inspiring. You see all this impactful advertising, inspiring us to move, to be active. So what happened was, that was all great and that was all good, and Nike was dominating everywhere in every market, like football, running, all these markets, in all these geographic locations. And then in January 2020, they got a new president, they got a new head, a new CEO and a new president of consumer product and brand. And that all changed. So they did something crazy and they decided to be visionary and go all in on direct to consumer and basically pull back on their wholesale. So when I say pull back on their wholesale, I mean so that we can go to the store ourselves. The option of us going to retail and buying it ourselves, they decided to make secondary, even though that's what had worked for them from their inception, and cut a bunch of jobs and a bunch of distributors, like a lot of them, so that they could try to sell directly. And it looked like it was a good idea because remember during the pandemic there was a wobble for retail, but then when things came back, then every quarter Nike started to show a loss. So it's kind of surprising that they haven't done anything about it yet. They haven't changed their strategy, but so basically now they just, people are pulling their stocks. So I will say as a hopeful note that Nike has a history of unbelievable comebacks, as you'll even read in the article, and people still believe in the swoosh. So I actually don't doubt that they will come back. I just think that it could take at least as many years to come back. So that's kind of the story of what happened. And here's 3 things that we want to keep in mind so that we don't fall into that trap, which it's really interesting. So along this path of what they did, by the way, is they started to neglect their brand. They started to get less creative in their advertising because they're advertising based on their relationship with the markets, and the sports is very innovative and inspiring, right? So that's one mistake that they made, besides also cutting off a lot of local partners. So what this shows, and this is kind of mentioned elsewhere too, is they decided to do something that was less effective but easier to measure versus something that was more effective but way less easy to be measured. In other words, like they decided to pull back on their branding and all of the wonderful things they were doing there and shift everything over to digital. And I think any smart marketer would ever say, yes, give me all your digital dollars and now start and just ignore your branding, right? No digital marketer wants that because it all works together. So, but what is the temptation, I will say, that you run into even with small businesses is that people want everything to be measured, and they want to make sure that their dollars are being spent just right. And even at the corporate level, where they're spending like 10,000 or 20,000 a day, and now they want to invest in this, like there's a really expensive tracking software now called Measured, and it's something like, like $8,000 a month just to see if we can figure out where the inefficiencies are. But that's fine, and that app could work just great. But I want to point out that at the end of the day, people should always be measuring by the bottom line, right? So even if the app or the platform says, oh, I'm giving you all this money, if the bottom line does not reflect that, then there's a problem. And so that's something that I'm always, when I pull into my weekly reporting, is what is the bottom line? And I think sometimes people feel like that's too simple. Because of course I track a lot, but it's like at the end of the day, we need to make sure that your business is healthy, not just looking good like on paper. Let me set this down really quick because my computer screen is interesting right now. But I think a second thing, which I was kind of hinting at, and that articles go into more in depth, is that you can't stop innovating, right? And so some of this is like when people are like, well, post less on social media and don't feel like you have to do the whole social media thing. And for us, that means, well, you don't have to post every day, and you don't have to post, multiple times. But you do want to stay on the pulse of like what is going on the platform, what is going on in the world, because you want to be innovating. And so the mistake that Nike made was they just stopped innovating. They still had a bunch of branded ads that looked really nice, but they lacked that kind of inspirational narrative, that storytelling narrative that they always had. They kind of stopped doing what they were really good at, and what made them rise to greatness, So, and I think unfortunately, because they pulled off the shelves, now they underestimated how people would respond. Like they thought people would now just go online and buy the Nike shoes that they wanted, but instead what they did is they just kept going to the store, and the store didn't have Nike, so they just stocked the shelves with something else, and now people are buying other brands. So they just really, I don't know, it's kind of unusual too that they've just kept on this, and they've kept their same leadership instead of changing like leadership and their strategy. So they've kind of shifted back to try to get back to what they were doing before. But I think at the third and final thing that that was emphasized, and this is kind of back to business basics too, right? Was if you focus on existing customers, then you're not going to grow. Like, that's not how that works. So they kind of shifted from, oh no, we want more loyalty. We're not having enough sales. We want more loyalty. We're going to do discounts. We're going to get more sales of the people that already buy from us, instead of, like really heavily, like sales all the time. So what that did was instead of focusing on attracting new customers and athletes, is they just ended up like eroding their market share, right? So you always want to be trying to aggressively grow your market share and trying to go after new customers, because that is really, I think this plays out in real life really clearly, but I don't know if any of the micro businesses following along have been exposed to this idea. It's just that you really do need to focus on bringing in new customers, because that's just the lifeblood of your business. And if you focus on existing customers, those are always going to shrink, right? That's just the nature of the beast. So if you want to even just remain in an even keel, you have to really focus on getting have a systematic way to get new customers so that you can stay in business. And that Nike almost forgot that by, doing this thing where they got really focused on their existing customers in a strange way. So anyway, those are kind of my 3 points. Be careful about choosing a path, because you can you think you can measure it better. Always be innovating and always be going after new customers. So that's it. I would love if you say hi in the comments. This is Miley with Mustard Seed Social signing off.